Hello, everyone. I am Vice President and General Manager of Self-Aware Games Studio, which is a studio of Big Fish Games. We make the Big Fish Casino product, as well as Big Fish Bingo. And I nicely undersold myself here on the title slide by promising you one lesson instead of the multiple lessons. So I think that I will pleasantly surprise you because I have more than one in here. And really, I just wanted to take some time today, and through this conference, you're hearing a lot about predictions going forward in the market, what's going to be happening. I think there's a lot to be learned from looking back at kind of where we've come from and what we learned along the way to help us out as we move forward. So there are a lot of uncertainties, things that we can't control. How do we prepare for these? One of the things that we can do is just really be grounded in who we are and where we've come from and what we've learned. And that'll help us make the necessary business decisions as we move forward and deal with the things that we can't predict. So to just kind of start our mindset and get us kind of back in the space, this is the top social casino apps in 2012. You'll see some very recognizable icons, and you'll see some that, if you're new or to the industry, you may or may not recognize. The one in the middle on the bottom is actually Big Fish Casino, back when it was called Carey Casino. And then this is what that list looks like today. There are four games that are no longer on this slide, and then some of the new entrants to the slide, like Double Down and Bingo Blitz, you would have just figured had always been there. But what this kind of highlights is that mobile social casinos are a new niche, right? Double Down was just launching on iOS in 2012. So in fact, the whole space is relatively new. I understand the real question, and what everyone is trying to know is what will this look like in 2016? What's the secret not only to surviving, but to really thriving as the social casino industry continues to mature? How do I catch the wave of consolidation and make sure my app and my company aren't just a footnote along the way? Fundamentally, to survive in the games industry, you must be able to evolve to meet each market change appropriately and quickly. And while we can't always predict what's coming our way, we can use these lessons that we've learned from the past in order to make the right decisions moving forward. Big Fish is a 12-year-old games company with a strong history of being able to adapt and grow. We first started as a game development studio, and then we added distribution to become the largest PC marketplace for casual games. We subsequently focused on mobile and free-to-play, and now are a top 10 top-grossing publisher on iOS. What puts us in a unique position to glean lessons from our experience is not just our 12-year-old history as a game studio, it's that we've grown Big Fish Casino over the past 4 years to a top spot in the charts due to our focus on game development and live operations and a fundamental understanding of mobile. And let me tell you, one of the things that has kept us around and will become even more important as the industry consolidates is providing a meaningful entertainment experience for your players. Now, when I was speaking here at Casual Connect last year, I talked about entertainment and how what we do as social casino developers is really provide an entertainment experience. I'm hearing that more and more this year, so I think I was right on the money. Even Playtika, when they were talking yesterday during lunch, they were saying that our competitors as an industry are really other industries that are competing for our players' time, so HBO or Netflix. What we do as free-to-play game developers is make entertainment. Players who get good entertainment value will also stick with you as you evolve. We still have players actively playing Big Fish Casino that have been with the app since 2009. How are we able to keep those players around for 5 years? To answer that, let's start at the beginning and really step back. Do you guys remember 2010? Maybe you were just finishing watching I heard some shaking of the heads in the back. No one remembers 2010. Nice. Maybe you're just finishing the last World Cup that was held in South Africa. It was also the year that the iPad launched. And the slide, okay, it is progressing, just not on my screen. Great. So it was the year the iPad launched, and that was a pretty exciting time for everyone. Big Fish had launched their first mobile game in 2008. But we really doubled down when the iPad came out because we saw a big opportunity for games and game development. We were a launch partner on the iPad with our game, Amazon Hidden Expedition. That was, 4 people in a stinky room for several months, locked in, no windows, not a lot of air. Not a very glamorous thing to be a launch partner always, but it was a great chance for us to really, start to understand the tablet as a new device. And to set the stage, in the social casino space, Zynga Poker was the category leader and already cross-platform. They had launched their iOS game their Facebook game in 2007 and their iOS game in 2008. However, there weren't many people at this point thinking beyond poker. And part of this was because the US online poker business in 2010 was $1.4 billion in the US. And the social casino business was really pretty small. Also, what was happening in 2010 is you started to see the development of social casinos outside of poker on Facebook. So we had Double Down and Slotomania launch on Facebook. But this was a time where games like Frontierville, Nightclub City, and Mall World were all the rage. I don't know if you guys remember those. I had a big nightclub in Nightclub City for sure. Those were commanding tens of millions of MAUs, and social casinos were just getting their start. Free-to-play games were big on Facebook and had been for a couple years, but when we looked at iOS, 2010 was also the year that we started to see in-app purchases take over in terms of game revenue. And here's a chart from Flurry for that time period, and you can see the transition through the course of 2010 from game developers making their money through advertising revenue and that transition to virtual goods sales. So this is a time where creating free-to-play games on mobile really started to become viable as a business. So we saw the future and started to take a gamble in the free-to-play game space with the studio Self-Aware Games. We took 2 of our cross-platform games, Card Ace Hold'em and Card Ace Blackjack, which existed at the time across WebOS, iOS, Android, and Facebook, and we merged them into one single app, Card Ace Casino. These are some of the first synchronous multiplayer cross-platform games. They were some of the first free-to-play games there on iOS, and they just happened to be in the social casino space. What set Card Ace Casino apart was not only was it one of the first multiplayer, the first social casino games on mobile, but it was literally social first. And I mean, people were actually the first thing you saw when you opened up the app. That was a little intimidating to some players to open up an app and instead of seeing kind of a choice of games to see the people that you could play with. But it really, kind of set the stage for us and really helped us carve out our space in the niche. Our retention wasn't super high at this point, but that was okay to start because it set us up with a great tech platform and customer expectations are low. And I'll continue to kind of talk about customer expectations throughout the course of the presentation today because it's really evolving customer expectations that push our industry forward and force us and encourage us to continue to evolve our products and services. In 2010, people were generally just happy to find the casino-style games they loved to play available to them, whether it be on Facebook or mobile. Many of the games that launched during this period still exist today, and the reason that they do is because they had sort of first-mover advantage. They were able to capture market share, but also because they were able to get in early and learn about the social casino player. So that brings me to my first lesson, lean forward and take risks. For us, taking early risk on mobile, a platform that had yet to fully develop, and with this crazy synchronous social game, really ended up shaping our success going forward. So to summarize, in 2010, there were generally low-quality products. There are only 120,000 apps on the App Store and just 3 billion downloads to date. And real money wagering existed in the US. Then came 2011. 2011 was a momentous year for social casino games, and this is when the industry really started to get attention. One of the big reasons for this and the big milestone in the industry was the Black Friday crackdown of online poker in 2011. All of a sudden, a $1.4 billion poker market in the US went away. It was no longer there. But social casino gameplay was on the rise, and brick and mortar businesses and traditional casino businesses started to take notice of the new niche. And this was spearheaded by Caesars' acquisition of Playtika in May 2011. Playtika at that time had 3 million MAU on Facebook, which is about where they are today, although they've grown their MAU considerably around mobile as well. Bingo Bash also launched on Facebook this year, and by early fall, Double Down in the social casino market had grown a user base of several million on Facebook. Both Slotomania and Double Down had over 1 dozen, and I'm saying a whole 12, slot machines to put that in perspective, they have respectively 50 and 70 slots each. So at this point, games were just starting to add slot machines and the catalogs were still fairly small. You can see here the size of the market relatively. In 2010, it barely existed. You had some online revenues from Zynga Poker, and it really started to grow and take off on Facebook. 2011 was also the year that we launched our first slot machine on mobile. Maybe the first slot machine on mobile. If not, it was definitely one of the first. Look at the simplicity of the art here. You can also see we had many innovations that were really unique to us. We took our social perspective and we built it into creating a bank of, visually a bank of slot machines so you could play with other players. We had our one-armed bandit. But we also, had a lot of the UI that we still have and carried forward to this day. In fact, the UI in our game hasn't changed over the past 3 years until just recently. All of these ideas, the idea for the social bank of slot machines, the idea to sort of have our unique spin on it, these were created by our team, and there was something that was unique to us. And that takes me to lesson number 2, be unique. This was really important to us at this stage in the industry because although we were one of the first games on mobile, we weren't going to be the only social casino game on mobile for very long. Being unique and leveraging our social-first approach, having a quirky style, all of this helped us stand out over the coming years. Players would stay with us because we offered unique gameplay and a game experience that they couldn't find elsewhere. And this benefited us as the industry grew because we weren't one of the first mobile casinos for very long. Just a few months later, we saw the big Facebook games start to expand to mobile. In November 2011, Slotomania released on iOS, followed closely by Slots Journey. So to recap, in 2011, the industry was just getting started. On Facebook, we saw an explosion of success in social casino games. There were 42 games appearing in the top 500 grossing Facebook games, compared to only 7 at mobile in this time. Overall, the market was worth $380 million on Facebook, compared to just $48 million on mobile, for a total market size shy of $500 million. This would almost triple just a year later. So if you think about the social casino market here, worth $428 million in 2011, it gives you some perspective on why IGT's acquisition of Double Down just a month later for $500 million was shocking at the time. And it really started the gold rush around social casino games. 2012 was the year of acquisition. Here are some of the notable ones from that year. IGT acquired Double Down, Big Fish acquired Self-Aware Games, WMS acquired Phantom EFX, Aristocrat acquired Product Madness, and Caesars, for their second acquisition in the space, acquired Buffalo Studios. And the mobile market continued to heat up as well. GSN and Double Down Casino launched on iOS in March 2012. Mobile alone went from $48 million in 2011 to $224 million in 2012, a growth of over 360%. So you can really see the mobile industry start to take off. Facebook also grew by 140% to just shy of $1 billion. In August 2012, we rebranded Carey's Casino to Big Fish Casino, which seemed like a really big risk at the time. Everyone was kind of hesitant to whether the Big Fish brand could extend to the social casino space. What would our players think? Would Big Fish, the kind of casual, immersive, you play, in your room, these scary hidden object adventures, translate to a very social-first, forward social casino game? It turned out to be one of our biggest drivers of growth in 2012. With the rebranding, we were able to put the full force of Big Fish behind the game. And turns out our customers loved it. At this point, consumers began to realize, again, going back to customer expectations, that there's a multitude of options on the market. And games are starting to need to differentiate based on content and gameplay. This can be seen throughout the year as games added more and more types of content and slot machines to their catalogs to attract customers. Customers are playing more than one social casino game. And so games started to really compete with each other for the time span of those players within their specific game. It was an exploring phase for customers, and the behavior allowed for higher MAUs across the board, but lower per game LTVs as players were again still starting to explore as a genre. At this point, it was okay since user acquisition was still fairly cheap. To stay ahead of growing competition and the diversity for players available on mobile, we released a bunch of new content in 2012. We experimented with new types of gameplay. We released a game called Food Fight that incorporated some RPG elements. And we also released a game called Snow Day, which was our first social scatter mechanic that really took the social first approach that we had and brought it into the slot gameplay itself. In 2012, we saw tremendous growth across the industry, which brings me to my third lesson: know when to double down. This was happening across the space, demonstrated by the number of acquisitions occurring in this period. Ultimately, these companies saw a meaningful market share starting to develop and threw their resources and focus behind it to seize the opportunity. We were no different. We focused on multiple fronts throughout the year in order to grow our player base. We rebranded, which introduced Big Fish Casino to a new set of players, already familiar with the Big Fish brand. We released new games and features to increase engagement with existing players. We leveraged Big Fish user acquisition expertise to grow our game. We grew our studio in Oakland, and we continued to develop our expertise in the space at a fast clip. We used this opportunity to test out new games and features. The tremendous growth of the market to just shy of $1 billion in 2012, 171% year-over-year growth across both Facebook and mobile combined. By 2013, social casino apps were officially hot. During the year, focus would shift from poker to slots, and Caesar would surpass Zynga to become the world's biggest social casino publisher on the backs of their acquisition of Slotomania and Bingo Blitz. There were also a few other acquisitions happening in the space. In June 2013, Zynga acquired Spooky Cool Labs and access to the Wizard of Oz brand, and Caesars bought out EA to bring World Series of Poker in-house. On Facebook, social casino MAUs started to be in decline as a percentage of the total social gaming audience. This just speaks to the fact that people had explored the social casino games and were starting to settle on the games that they wanted to play. Acquisition costs also continued to climb on Facebook as the competition increased. Average revenue per game on Facebook peaked in 2013, and this is also a sign of a maturing market as the number of apps grew, but only the top players are continuing to grow market share and revenues. There was still opportunity for new entrants, as demonstrated by the growth of High Five and W Casino, My Vegas, Heart of Vegas, and Hit It Rich on Facebook. But these were typically created by larger players who had means to bridge the discovery challenge and grow audience. These games that grew in 2013 on Facebook ran counter to the trend in declining MAUs, showing that players were still willing to discover new content. Playtime and the number of games played was also increasing in 2013 due to the growth on mobile. Social casinos continued to be a hot category through 2013. Facebook revenues grew by only 27% to $1.2 billion, whereas mobile revenues grew by 190%. But even on the fastest growing mobile platforms, smaller companies had a much harder time getting discovered, as discovery on mobile can present an even tougher challenge. Also, in 2013, customer expectations really extended to cross-platform play. People started to expect that the social casino games that they played and loved were available to them wherever they wanted to play. Operators and developers are seeing that users who play on more than one platform are the most valuable customers. So, when we look at today, the current expectation is that if you have a social casino game, it's available across the platforms. Players want to be able to, play on an iPhone on the subway, on their way to work. They want to be able to check in at work quickly on their browser and collect their chips. And then when they're at home, they want to be able to sit on the couch while their husband is watching the sports ball, and and play some slots. So for us, 2013 was a year of iteration. And we really continue to grow our game. Iteration was key. And this is also the year when we saw many competitors that were in the top of the 2012 list start to fall away. And that's because they didn't keep pushing their game forward. We continue to evolve our product by introducing new slot machines. We released to retail. But what was important is that we took the time to upgrade areas in our game that hadn't been touched since 2009. You can see we had an old kind of happy hour black box pop-up there, and we were able to really upgrade it and bring it to the 21st century and make it something graphical that you would expect. A lot of that is, working with a platform and a game that's been around for 4 or 5 years, and it's continually updating what you have. We also, for the first time, beat Clash of Clans on the top grossing chart, which was pretty exciting. Slot machines continue to be very important for us. We released new slot machine types in 2013 and more slot machines than ever before. The biggest takeaway from last year was the games that continued to push themselves forward to evolve and stay on top of best practices were the ones that continued to grow and thrive. As we exited the year as a top 10 top grossing app according to Apple. So lesson number 4 is iterate, 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 and I can't iterate that enough. It's truly the success to stickiness. It's not enough to sit back on your laurels. At this point in the market, success comes through reinvention. Don't get distracted, keep moving forward. Ultimately, free-to-play games are games as a service. They're entertainment that is a living, breathing, 24/7 entertainment experience. Just like a hotel or movie theater, you have to continually be updating it, keeping it fresh. You need to remodel, and you need to do that to stay on top of your game. It's not an easy task to execute, and it takes an incredibly skilled team to do it well, and we're lucky to have one at Self-Aware and Big Fish. So that brings us to 2014, this year. This year at WWDC, Apple announced the scale of the App Store is 1.2 million apps. This number of apps has grown 10x in 4 years. Discovery is a huge problem, and these downloads are becoming more and more concentrated across a few apps at the top of the charts. This will exacerbate consolidation of the space and make it even harder for new entrants without big pocketbooks. Yet the mobile social casino market continues to grow at double digits. Social casinos are a mass market entertainment experience, and they're not driven by a user's desire to win real money. Some of our main competition, like I said, is other entertainment industries. The social casino space continues to evolve and grow and establish itself as a meaningful business. A few more notable acquisitions already happened this year. GSM bought Bash Gaming, finally. Caesars acquired Pacific Interactive. Bally's acquired Dragonplay, and G-Tech acquired IGT just a few weeks ago. Players expect a cross-platform, consistent experience. They want to be able to play their games wherever they are. Production values are also starting to rise. People want this immersive experience. They want to feel like they're in a social casino environment, hanging out with their friends, playing slot machines. And that rise in production value also means a rise in development costs. We're also seeing increased focus on licensed brands. In March, IGT licensed Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy for implementation across platforms and business models. Plumbee also received investment from Endemol that will likely allow them access to Endemol's IP. We released a successful TV commercial in the US, so even production values and ads are starting to get higher and higher. As we continue to move forward, cost of development operations increases. It's critical to become more and more focused on what your players want. We're able to use our deep expertise in business intelligence to focus in on what it is our players want. 76% of the players in Big Fish Casino will play slots on any given day. We focused on that. We wanted to provide them an updated, immersive experience. That's why we launched our luxury line of slots games with this first slot machine, Phoenix Rising. This line will provide us a richer, more immersive gameplay experience. The slide here showcases the different moods of the slot machine of the first game that we released. As a player plays and they progress, we have the flexibility of changing the environment around them to really give them a heightened experience. This was our best received slot launch by far, and is our most popular slot machine in Big Fish Casino today. In fact, here's some fan art created by one of our players. Lesson number 5, focus on your players. It's always served us well. Now looking towards the future, last year at this conference I talked about how social casinos were really about creating an entertainment experience for players and how those experiences were more meaningful with friends. I believe that even more firmly today. I also talked about how mobile was the future, and we're seeing that ring true now today more than ever. In fact, mobile has grown to be as big or surpass PC in the last several months. It's important to recognize the effort and attention it takes to continue to grow and evolve the entertainment experience and keep up with the growing market. There is no rest, and you need to have a talented team to continue to push boundaries. So mobile market is now as big as PC and continuing to grow. Big Fish Casino grew 250% in gross revenue in 2013, outpacing the market growth by 60%. As the market size increased, so does the competition to acquire players. But you have to focus on longer term retention and engagement. And that's the secret really to not only just surviving, but to thriving in the casino industry. You need to focus on the fact that we provide entertainment to our players, focus on the fact that you want to provide them entertainment value, and that translates into the gameplay time that they'll spend on your app. So just recap how far we've come. Here's where we were in 2012. Here's where we are today. And if you want to be in this list in 2016, focusing on long-term player retention and creating a truly sticky app is key. We achieved a 40% lift in day one retention since we acquired Self-Aware in 2012, a 66% lift in longer-term retention. In the process of achieving this growth and longevity, we learned a few key lessons, and those are lean forward and take risks, be unique, know when to double down, iterate, 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 and focus on your players. Thank you.